Captain Daeho Kim stood in the observation deck of Orbital Defense Station Alpha, staring at the anomaly readings on his screen. Something massive had just appeared near Jupiter. Something that should not be there. "Sir, we're getting multiple contacts," his communications officer reported, her voice tight with tension. "Thousands of them." Daeho walked to the main display. The screen showed a cluster of ships so vast it looked like a second asteroid belt had materialized overnight. His stomach dropped. This was it. The moment Earth had been preparing for since they first detected alien signals 30 years ago. "Get me Admiral Junho Lee immediately," Daeho ordered. Down on Earth, in the underground command center beneath Geneva, Admiral Junho Lee was already watching the same data. He was a tall man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many simulations of this exact scenario. His staff moved around him with practiced efficiency, pulling up tracking data and weapon systems. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission," reported Yuna Choi, the AI systems director. She was young, barely 30. But her neural interface with Earth's defense network made her the most connected human alive. "It's in multiple languages. They must have studied our broadcasts." "Play it," Junho said. A voice filled the command center. It was deep and resonant, translated into perfect English by whatever technology the aliens possessed. "People of Earth, I am Emperor Thelvar of the Velkran Empire. We have conquered 847 star systems over 3,000 years. Your planet is now part of our domain. You have 48 hours to surrender your governments and military forces. Resistance will result in the extinction of your species. Compliance will result in your integration as a subject world. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. The command center was silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then Junho smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Contact all defense stations. Activate Protocol Apex. And someone get Dr. Minha Park up here. I want to know everything about these Velkrans before we kill them." Dr. Minha Park arrived within 10 minutes. She was Earth's chief xenobiologist, though she had never actually seen a living alien. Her entire career had been theoretical, preparing for this day. She pulled up holographic displays of the Velkran fleet, her fingers dancing through the data. "They're confident," she said. "Look at their formation. They're not even maintaining defensive positions. They think we're going to surrender." "Will we?" asked a young lieutenant. Junho turned to face his command staff. 30 years ago, we detected their communications passing through our solar system. We learned we were not alone. We also learned the galaxy was not peaceful. So we did what humanity does best. We prepared. We united. We built weapons these ancient empires couldn't imagine. And now they've come to our home. He touched a control on his wrist. Throughout the command center, screens shifted to show hidden military installations across Earth and throughout the solar system. Weapon platforms disguised as satellites. Shipyards hidden in the asteroid belt. Thousands of stealth vessels waiting in the dark spaces between planets. "The Velkrans think we're a primitive species that will beg for mercy," Junho continued. "They're about to learn what happens when you threaten humanity's home." Up on the orbital station, Daeho received his orders. Protocol Apex was active. He looked at his crew, men and women who had trained their entire lives for this moment. "Status report," he ordered. "All stealth platforms online," his tactical officer reported. "Railgun satellites charged. Kinetic strike packages ready. Drone swarms prepared for deployment. Sir, we have firing solutions on every ship in their fleet. Hold position," Daeho said. "Let them think we're debating their surrender demand." On the Velkran flagship, Emperor Thelvar watched Earth with bored amusement. He was old, over 200 years, and he had overseen dozens of planetary conquests. They always went the same way. The primitives saw his fleet. They panicked. They surrendered. Sometimes they tried to fight with their pathetic chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. Those campaigns were over in hours. Emperor, the humans have not responded. His communication officer reported. They're still arguing among themselves, Thelvar said dismissively. These young species always fracture when faced with superior force. Give them time to realize surrender is their only option. But Earth was not arguing. Every government had agreed to the Unified Defense Plan decades ago. Every military force had integrated into a single command structure. Every resource had been poured into preparing for this day. In bunkers across Earth, civilians moved into prepared shelters. They had practiced this drill hundreds of times. Above them, laser arrays disguised as communication towers rotated toward the sky. Beneath the ocean, submarines moved into launch positions. On the moon, railgun emplacements powered up. Junho watched the countdown. 48 hours. The Velcrans were giving them 48 hours, probably to let fear and division do their work. Sir, they're moving closer, Yuna reported. Let them come, Junho said quietly. Dr. Minha studied the Velcran ships. They were massive, kilometers long, built with technology Earth couldn't quite match. But she noticed something else. The designs were old. Very old. These ships had the same basic structure as vessels the Velcrans had used 3,000 years ago, based on the historical data they had transmitted. Admiral, she said slowly, they haven't innovated. Their empire is so old and successful, they've stopped improving. They're using the same weapons, the same tactics, the same strategies they've used for millennia. Junho nodded. Complacency. They've never needed to adapt, because nothing has challenged them. Until now, Minna finished. The hours ticked down. Across the solar system, human forces waited in perfect silence. The Velcrans continued their slow, confident approach. They had no idea that thousands of weapons were already locked onto every single one of their ships. They had no idea that the planet they thought was helpless had spent 3 decades becoming the most militarized rock in the galaxy. Daeho received a secure message from Junho. Just 3 words. Stand by. For authorization. He looked out at the Velcran fleet. They were beautiful ships, in their way. Ancient and powerful and utterly doomed. Sir, his weapons officer said quietly, they're launching something. Looks like a scout probe. It's heading directly for the station. Daeho nodded. This was it. The moment of contact. The probe approached. Its sensors swept across the station. Then it exploded without warning. Destroyed by a laser so fast, the Velcrans never saw it fire. On the Velcran flagship, alarms blared. Emperor, our probe was destroyed. Thelvar sat up straighter. By what? Unknown, sir. We detected no weapon fire. For the first time in a very long time, Emperor Thelvar felt something unfamiliar. A cold sensation in his chest, almost like fear. On Earth, Admiral Junho Lee smiled again. He opened a channel to every human military unit in the solar system. Authorization code Apex 117. Protocol is active. Wait for my signal. Captain Daeho Kim received the authorization codes. He looked at his crew one last time. They have no idea what we've become, he said softly. The countdown continued. 42 hours remained. 20 hours had passed since the Velcran ultimatum. On Earth, news networks showed emergency broadcasts. People looked scared. Governments appeared to be in heated debates. It was all theater, carefully staged to make the Velcrans believe humanity was panicking. In reality, Commander Hyuk Nam was checking his stealth ship's systems for the 5th time. His vessel, the Silent Arrow, was one of 300 stealth craft hidden in Earth's orbit. The Velcrans couldn't detect them. Their sensors were centuries old, designed to find ships with heat signatures and radiation. Human stealth technology used quantum field manipulation. To Velcran sensors, these ships simply didn't exist. All systems green, reported his co-pilot. We're ready to go hunting. Hyuk nodded. He was a quiet man, thin and focused, with the patience of someone who had spent years in special operations. We wait for the signal. Across the solar system, engineer Sunmi Bay was making final adjustments to Project Sundeath. She stood in a control room on the moon, watching as massive orbital mirrors aligned themselves. To the Velcrans, they looked like solar power collectors. In truth, they were focusing arrays capable of channeling concentrated solar energy with pinpoint accuracy. Test firing solution on target coordinates, she said to her team. The computers calculated trajectories. Each mirror could redirect enough solar energy to melt through a kilometer of solid steel in seconds. And Earth had 8,000 of them, positioned throughout the inner solar system. Sunmi smiled grimly. The Velcrans are about to learn why you don't invade a system with a star in it. Lieutenant Jiwon Kang sat in her fighter cockpit, neural interface active. Through her brain-computer connection, she could feel 1,000 AI-piloted drones linked to her consciousness. Each drone was small, fast, and carried enough firepower to cripple a Velcran cruiser. And she was just one of 500 pilots with the same capability. Neural sync at 98%. Her AI companion reported directly into her thoughts. Drone. Swarm. Ready for deployment. Jiwon flexed her fingers. Through the neural link, she felt like she had 1,000 bodies, all waiting to strike. Standing by. Ruth, Dr. Minha Park, was in the intelligence center, reviewing everything humanity had learned about the Velcrans from their transmissions. She had spent 3 decades studying alien psychology, preparing for this moment. Admiral, I've completed my analysis, she said to Junho's hologram. Tell me, he replied. The Velcran Empire is 3,000 years old. They've been successful for so long that they've stopped adapting. Look at their fleet composition. It's identical to historical patterns we've found in their old transmissions. They use the same tactics, the same weapons, the same formations. They've conquered so many weak civilizations that they can't imagine losing. And that's their weakness, Junho said. Yes. They expect resistance to be primitive. Chemical rockets, nuclear weapons, maybe crude lasers. They have no frame of reference for an enemy that might be their equal or superior. Their entire strategy is based on overwhelming force against inferior opponents. Junho nodded slowly. They're bullies who've never been punched back. Exactly. And bullies never know what to do when someone hits harder. The Velcran fleet was now in high Earth orbit. From his flagship, Emperor Thelvar watched the planet below. He was growing impatient. The humans had been silent for 20 hours. No surrender. No communication. Nothing. Send another transmission, he ordered. Tell them they have 1 hour to respond, or we begin orbital bombardment. His weapons master bowed. As you command, Emperor. Shall we move ships into firing position? Yes. Deploy 100 vessels. Destroy one of their settlements on the moon. Something small. Show them we're serious. The command went out. 100 Velcran warships moved away from the main fleet, approaching the moon. They targeted an abandoned mining facility humanity had conveniently left empty. On Earth, alarms sounded in the command center. Sir. They're breaking formation, Yuna reported. 100 ships moving toward Luna. They're charging weapons. Perfect, Junho said calmly. They're giving us an isolated target. Sunmi. Are your mirrors in position? On the moon. Engineer Sunmi Bay checked her displays. Affirmative. Admiral. We have clear firing solutions on all 100 targets. Hyuk. Is your fleet ready? In orbit, Commander Hyuk Nam activated his combat systems. Around him, 300 stealth ships did the same. We're ready, sir. G1. Status? Lieutenant Jiwon Kang's neural link pulsed with readiness. Behind her, 500 pilots, synced with their drone swarms. 500,000 weapon systems came online simultaneously. Standing by, Admiral. Junho watched the Velcron ships approach the moon. They were moving slowly, confidently, their shields at minimal power. They weren't expecting resistance. They were expecting terror. "All units," Junho said quietly. "Fire." The moon's surface erupted with light. 8,000 orbital mirrors redirected focused solar energy in perfect unison. Beams of concentrated starlight, each one carrying the energy of a nuclear explosion, lanced across space at the speed of light. The Velcran ships had no time to react. Their shields, designed to stop projectiles and crude lasers, offered no protection against weapons that turned stars into sniper rifles. In 3.7 seconds, all 100 Velcran warships simply ceased to exist. They didn't explode dramatically. They didn't burn. They were vaporized, turned into expanding clouds of plasma that glowed briefly before dissipating into space. On the Velcran flagship, every alarm in the fleet activated simultaneously. "Emperor, we've lost contact with the strike force." Thelvar stood up so fast he knocked over his command throne. "What? How?" "Unknown, sir. They just disappeared. All 100 ships." There was a massive energy surge from the human planet, and then nothing. For the first time in 3,000 years of conquest, a Velcran emperor felt genuine fear. That's impossible. What weapon could destroy 100 ships in seconds? His science officer was frantically reviewing sensor data. "Sir, the energy readings are consistent with focused solar radiation, but the precision required would need millions of individual targeting systems working in perfect coordination. No species should be capable of that level of technological integration." Thelvar's hands were shaking. "Ready all ships for combat. Maximum shields. Evasive patterns. These humans are more dangerous than we thought." "Sir, what are your orders?" The Emperor's pride overrode his fear. He had conquered nearly 1,000 worlds. He would not be defeated by one primitive planet. Full assault. Deploy the entire fleet. Crush them. On Earth, Dr. Minha Park watched the Velcran fleet begin its attack run. 10,000 warships accelerating toward Earth, weapons charging, shields at maximum. "They're committing everything," she reported. Admiral Junho Lee stood up from his command chair. "Good. Now they'll learn what humanity has been building for 30 years. All forces, engage at will. Show them what fear feels like." Thanks for watching, and I'll see an up-to description. And don't forget to. Across the solar system, humanity's true military revealed itself. Stealth ships phased into normal space, appearing behind Velcran formations. Drone swarms launched from hidden carriers, filling space with deadly precision. Railgun satellites that had pretended to be communication relays opened fire, sending tungsten rods at relativistic speeds. Commander Huknam's silent arrow materialized directly inside the shield envelope of a Velcran battleship. "Torpedoes away," he said calmly. The ship exploded from the inside. Lieutenant Jiwan Kang's consciousness spread across her 1,000 drones. They moved like a school of predatory fish, overwhelming Velcran point defense systems through sheer numbers and coordination. Her drones didn't miss. They didn't hesitate. They were extensions of her will. And her will was destruction. Engineer Sunmi Bay's orbital mirrors continued their deadly work, burning through Velcran capital ships like a cutting torch through butter. And from the asteroid belt, the ships appeared. Thousands of human warships that had been built in secret over 3 decades. Each one incorporating technology the Velcrans had never imagined. Quantum shields, plasma cannons, FTL torpedoes, AI-assisted targeting that could track 10,000 targets simultaneously. Captain Bora Song commanded one of these warships, the Indomitable. She was a veteran of simulations, trained for this day since she was 18 years old. Now, at 40, she finally got to test her ship against real enemies. "All weapons, fire," she commanded. The Indomitable lived up to its name. Its guns spoke, and Velcran ships died. The battle was not a battle. It was an execution. In 47 minutes, 6,000 Velcran ships were destroyed. The remaining 4,000 tried to retreat. Admiral Junho Lee opened a channel to the Velcran flagship. Emperor Thelvar, you came to our home expecting to find primitives. You found apex predators instead. Your fleet is destroyed. Your empire is over. Surrender now, and you may live. Resist, and we will erase you from existence. In his flagship, Emperor Thelvar stared at the tactical display in horror. His fleet, invincible for 3,000 years, had been demolished in less than an hour. His hands trembled as he reached for the communication control. We surrender. No, Junho said coldly. You don't understand. We're not taking your surrender. We're coming for your home. The Velcran flagship was burning. Emergency lights flickered as Emperor Thelvar watched his fleet die on the tactical display. Ships that had conquered hundreds of worlds were being torn apart by weapons he couldn't even understand. Sir, we need to evacuate. His captain shouted over the alarms. No, Thelvar said numbly. Where would we go? They're everywhere. He was right. Commander Hugh-Nam's stealth ships were phasing through space like ghosts, appearing inside Velcran shield envelopes and firing point blank. The Velcrans had designed their defenses against external threats. They had never imagined an enemy that could simply bypass their shields entirely. Hyuk guided his ship through the chaos with practiced calm. His co-pilot marked targets, and he eliminated them. It was almost peaceful, in a way. Clean. Efficient. No wasted movement. Target the command sections, he ordered his squadron. Cut off their leadership. 300 stealth ships focused their fire on Velcran command ships. Without coordination, the remaining fleet began to fall apart. Some ships tried to retreat, others charged forward in desperate suicide runs. None of it mattered. They were fighting an enemy that had spent 30 years preparing for this exact scenario. Lieutenant Jiwon Kang felt the battle through her neural link. She was connected to 1,000 drones, each one an extension of her consciousness. The experience was overwhelming and exhilarating. She could see in 1,000 directions, fire 1,000 weapons, process 1,000 targeting solutions simultaneously. A Velcran cruiser tried to shoot down her drones with point defense lasers. She split her swarm, surrounding the ship from every angle. The cruiser's computers couldn't track them all. Her drones fired in perfect synchronization, and the cruiser exploded into fragments. Squadron leaders, report. She broadcast to the other pilots. This is Minsu. My swarm is at 87% effectiveness. The Velcrans can't handle our coordination. Hey Ju here. Same status. They're trying to jam our signals, but it's not working. Jiwon smiled. The Velcrans were using radio jamming, a technology humans had abandoned decades ago. Her neural link didn't use radio. It used quantum entanglement, impossible to jam or intercept. Continue engagement. Target their capital ships. 500,000 drones descended on the largest Velcran vessels, like a swarm of metallic locusts. Engineer Sunmi Bay watched her displays with satisfaction. Project Sundeath was performing better than simulations predicted. The orbital mirrors tracked targets with incredible precision, burning through Velcran hulls before their crews even knew they were under attack. Adjust Mirror Array 7, she ordered. Focus on that carrier. The mirrors shifted by fractions of a degree. Concentrated solar energy hit the Velcran carrier's reactor, and the ship vanished in a flash of white light. A young technician next to her looked pale. Ma'am, we're destroying them so fast. Is this right? Sunmi looked at him coldly. They came to our home to make us slaves. They've enslaved 47 other species. This isn't murder. This is pest control. Action hummed. The technician nodded slowly and returned to his station. Captain Borasong commanded the Indomitable through the wreckage of the Velcron fleet. Her ship was massive, nearly as large as the Velcron capital ships, but far more advanced. Quantum shields absorbed enemy fire that did manage to hit. Plasma cannons fired streams of superheated matter that melted through Velcron armor. Captain, sensors show the Velcran flagship trying to retreat, her tactical officer reported. Not happening, Bora said. Helm, pursuit course, weapons, target their engines. The Indomitable accelerated. Human ships used fusion drives that the Velcrans thought were theoretical. They were faster, more maneuverable, and far more deadly than anything the ancient empire had encountered. In range, weapons reported. Fire. Torpedoes lanced across space. They weren't normal torpedoes. Scientist Dongwu Han had designed them using quantum mechanics. And they didn't obey normal physics. They phased through normal space, appearing directly inside the Velcran flagship's engine room before detonating. The flagship lurched to a stop. Deploy boarding teams, Bora ordered. Admiral wants the Emperor alive. Sergeant Taejun Oh led the boarding party. He was a big man, built for combat, with neural augmentation that made him faster and stronger than any unmodified human. His team wore powered armor that made them look like walking tanks. They breached the Velcran flagship's hull with cutting torches. Atmosphere vented, alarms screamed, and Velcran soldiers tried to defend their emperor. They were brave, but bravery meant nothing against soldiers who could see through walls, predict enemy movements through AI assistance, and shoot with perfect accuracy. Taejun's rifle spoke in short, controlled bursts. Velcran soldiers fell. His team moved through the ship like a surgical instrument, precise and unstoppable. They had trained in virtual simulations of this exact ship design for years. They knew every corridor, every choke point, every defensive position. Approaching the bridge, Taejun reported. Remember the Emperor alive, came Admiral Junho's voice over the comm. Everyone else is expendable. Understood. They breached the bridge door. Velcron guards opened fire with plasma weapons. The shots splashed harmlessly off Taejun's armor. He returned fire, dropping 3 guards in 2 seconds. The rest surrendered when they saw their weapons were useless. Emperor Thelvar stood in the center of his ruined bridge, trying to maintain dignity. He was tall, nearly 8 feet, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. His ornate robes were torn and burned. He looked at Taejun with something between fear and disbelief. You are, humans? He asked. We are, Taejun said. On Earth, Admiral Junho Lee watched the battle end. 4,000 Velcran ships had tried to retreat. Human forces hunted them down systematically. Stealth ships, drone swarms, railgun satellites, the orbital mirrors. Every weapon system humanity had built over 3 decades of preparation was deployed with ruthless efficiency. Some Velcran ships made it to the edge of the solar system. They tried to jump to hyperspace, but engineer Sunmi Bei had deployed gravity well generators throughout the system. The Velcrans couldn't escape. They were trapped in humanity's killing ground. Dr. Minha Park monitored the alien communications as the Velcrans realized they were doomed. She heard prayers to their gods, messages to their families, final words of love and regret. She felt a brief moment of sympathy. Then she remembered the 47 enslaved species, and her sympathy disappeared. Admiral, the last Velcran ship has been destroyed, Yuna Choi reported. Total engagement time: 1 hour, 53 minutes. 10,000 Velcran ships eliminated. Human casualties: 0. Material losses: 12 drones, 1 satellite array. The command center was silent. Officers looked at each other in disbelief. They had won. Humanity's first major battle against an alien empire, and they had won without losing a single life. Junho allowed himself a small smile. Good work, everyone. But this isn't over. Bring me the Emperor. Sergeant Taejun Oh's shuttle landed at the Geneva Command Center 2 hours later. He escorted Emperor Thelvar into the base, the alien's hands bound with advanced restraints. The Emperor looked around at the human facility with growing horror. It was so advanced, so organized, so prepared. How? he asked as they walked. How did a young species develop such weapons? Taejun didn't answer. He delivered the Emperor to a secure holding cell and left him there. Dr. Minha Park entered the cell an hour later. She carried a data pad and a translator device. The Emperor looked at her with confusion. "You're a scientist," he said. "I can tell by your manner. You're not a warrior. You're not a warrior." "I'm a xenobiologist," Minha said. "I've spent 30 years studying alien species and psychology. Do you know what I learned about the Velcran Empire?" "What?" Thelvar asked bitterly. "That you're parasites. You conquer weaker species, steal their resources, and enslave their populations. You haven't innovated in thousands of years because you don't need to. You just take from others. We brought order to the galaxy," Thelvar protested. "You brought tyranny. And now you've learned what happens when you attack someone who isn't weaker than you." Minha leaned forward. "I need information. Emperor, where is your homeworld? Where are your core systems? How many slave species do you control?" "I will tell you nothing." Minha smiled sadly. "You don't have to tell me. We pulled the data from your ship's computers. But I wanted to see if you would cooperate." She stood up. "You're going to watch what happens next, Emperor. You're going to see what humanity does to slavers." She left the cell. Thelvar sat alone in the dark, and for the first time in his very long life, he understood what it felt like to be helpless. Outside, Admiral Junho Lee was addressing his command staff. "We've analyzed the Velcran data. Their homeworld is 300 light-years from here. Their empire spans 2,000 light-years. They have military installations on hundreds of worlds. Sir, are we really going to attack them?" asked a young officer. "That's an offensive war." Junho's eyes were hard. "No. It's a liberation. The Velcrans enslave entire species. We're going to free them, and we're going to make sure the Velcran Empire never threatens anyone again." He looked around at his staff. "Prepare the fleet. We're taking the fight to their home." Intelligence officer Mirai Yoon worked through the night, analyzing data from the captured Velcran flagship. She was a small woman, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. For 15 years, she had studied alien communications intercepted from deep space. Now, she finally had real intelligence to work with. "Admiral, you need to see this," she said, pulling up holographic star maps in the command center. Admiral Junho Lee studied the display. It showed the Velcran Empire in all its terrible glory. 2,000 light-years of conquered space, 847 star systems, 47 different alien species under Velcran control. "These are slave worlds," Mirai explained, highlighting systems in red. "The Velcrans strip mine them for resources and use the native populations as forced labor. Life expectancy for slaves averages 12 years after capture." 12 years, Junho repeated quietly. "Yes, sir. The Velcrans work them to death, then conquer new worlds to replace the lost labor. It's been their system for 3 millennia. Dr. Minha Park joined them, looking exhausted. She had been interrogating Emperor Thelvar for hours. The Emperor confirmed everything. The Velcrans see other species as tools. Nothing more. They don't even consider it wrong. To them, it's just the natural order." Junho stared at the map for a long moment. "How many Velcran military installations?" "Over 200 major bases," Mirai answered. "Their fleet is scattered across their territory. After what happened here, they'll be consolidating their forces to defend their core worlds." "Good. Let them gather their fleet in one place. It'll make our job easier." Diplomat Sojun Kwan entered the command center. He was an older man, gray-haired and distinguished, who had spent his career promoting peace and cooperation. He looked troubled. "Admiral, I must protest," Seojun said formally. "What you're proposing is an offensive war of conquest. We would be no better than the Velcrans." "No," Junho said firmly. "The Velcrans came to our home to enslave us. We're going to their home to free their slaves. There's a difference. Wellcrans. Wellcrans are bout captor. Wellcrans are bout captor. Wellcrans are bout captor. Wellcrans are bout captor. Wellcrans. Wellcrans are bout captor. Wellcrans are. Is there? We would still be invading their territory, attacking their worlds, imposing our will through military force. Junho turned to face the diplomat fully. Sojun, I respect you. I respect your commitment to peace. But some things are worth fighting for. The Velcrans enslave entire species. They work sentient beings to death. If we do nothing, they'll continue forever. If we fight back and lose, at least we tried. But if we fight back and win, we can free billions of people from slavery. And who decides we have the right to be the galaxy's police force? The 47 enslaved species, Minha said quietly. They deserve freedom. They deserve justice. And right now, we're the only ones who can give it to them. Seojun sighed. If we do this, we must be better than them. No unnecessary killing. No conquest. We liberate and withdraw. Agreed, Junho said. But first, we need to show them what they're facing. Engineer Sunmi Bei was already working on that problem. In her laboratory on the moon, she was overseeing the final tests of humanity's FTL drive. The technology had been reverse-engineered from Velcran communication signals, then improved through human innovation. Test 7 complete, her assistant reported. The drive is stable. We can travel 300 light-years in approximately 2 weeks. Sunmi allowed herself a smile. The Velcrans take 2 months to travel that distance. We'll be at their homeworld before they even know we've left Earth. Ma'am, how did we improve their technology so much? Because we had to, Sunmi said. The Velcrans have been using the same FTL drives for thousands of years. They never improved them. Because they didn't need to. We spent 30 years studying the problem from scratch. No preconceptions, no limitations. We built better drives because our survival depended on it. She pulled up schematics. Begin installing these drives in all capital ships. I want the fleet ready to depart in 72 hours. Pilot Heijin Lim was conducting deep space reconnaissance at the edge of the solar system. Her ship, the Far Sight, was designed for long-range scanning. She had been monitoring Velcron communication signals, listening to their fleet's panicked transmissions as they tried to understand what had happened. This is Far Sight to command, she transmitted. The Velcrans are in full retreat. Multiple distress signals across all frequencies. They're calling for reinforcements from their core worlds. Copy that, Far Sight, came Yuna Choi's voice. Continue monitoring. Heijin adjusted her sensors. Command, I'm also picking up transmissions from other species. Non-Velcran. They sound like the slave populations. Can you translate? Working on it. Heijin ran the signals through her ship's AI. Got it. Command. The enslaved species have heard about Earth's victory. They're spreading the news through underground networks. Some are talking about rebellion. On Earth, this news caused heated discussion in the command center. If the slave populations rebel, the Velcrans will slaughter them, Sojun warned. Not if we get there first, Junho said. He made a decision. Mirai, I want detailed intelligence on every slave world. We need to know which populations are most likely to rebel, and which ones need immediate help. On it, sir. Sunmi, how long until the fleet is ready? 72 hours, Admiral. Make it 48. We're running out of time. In his cell, Emperor Thelvar sat in the dark and thought about his empire. For 3,000 years, the Velcrans had been unstoppable. They had built their civilization on the backs of conquered species. They had grown comfortable, powerful, arrogant, and now one young species had destroyed their entire invasion fleet in less than 2 hours. The door opened. Sergeant Taejun Oh entered with a meal tray. He set it down without speaking. Why are you keeping me alive? Thelvar asked. Taejun looked at him. Admiral's orders. You're going to witness what happens to your empire. You can't destroy us. We control 800 star systems. We have millions of ships. Had, Taejun corrected. You had 10,000 ships. Now you have 0. And your millions of ships are scattered across 2,000 light years. By the time they gather to defend your home world, we'll already be there. Thelvar felt cold. You can't reach our home world. It would take you months to travel that far. Taejun smiled. It was not a kind smile. You really don't understand what you're facing, do you? We took your FTL technology and made it better. We'll be at your home world in 2 weeks. Your empire is over, Emperor. You just don't know it yet. He left, and Thelvar sat alone with his fear. 48 hours later, Earth's fleet gathered at the edge of the solar system. It was massive beyond belief. 50,000 warships, each one incorporating 30 years of focused military innovation. Stealth destroyers, carrier ships loaded with drone swarms, capital ships mounting quantum weapons, orbital mirror platforms that could be repositioned anywhere in space. Captain Dae-ho Kim stood on the bridge of his new command, the flagship Determination. He had been promoted from orbital station commander to fleet captain. Around him, officers prepared for the longest military campaign in human history. All ships report ready, sir, his communications officer said. Dae-ho opened a fleet-wide channel. This is Captain Kim to all vessels. In a few moments, we will jump to hyperspace. We're not going to war to conquer. We're going to war to liberate. The Velcrans have enslaved billions of sentient beings. We're going to free them. We're going to show the galaxy that humanity doesn't tolerate slavers. He paused. Some of you are scared. That's good. Fear keeps you sharp. Some of you are angry. That's good too. But remember our mission. We're not conquerors. We're liberators. Fight hard, but fight smart. The galaxy is watching. Admiral Junho Lee gave the final order from Earth. All ships, engage FTL drives. Target coordinates. Velcran homeworld. Time to show them what humanity is capable of. 50,000 ships vanished from normal space, traveling faster than the Velcrans thought possible, heading toward the heart of an empire that had never known defeat. In his cell on Earth, Emperor Thelvar felt the moment his homeworld's destruction became inevitable. He had led his people for 2 centuries. He had conquered hundreds of worlds. He had believed his empire would last forever. Now, he knew the truth. His empire had been living on borrowed time from the moment humanity detected their signals. The humans had prepared. They had united. They had built weapons specifically designed to fight empires like the Velcrans. And now those weapons were coming home. Dr. Minha Park entered his cell one last time. Emperor, I want you to understand something. Humanity isn't doing this because we're cruel. We're doing this because it's necessary. Your empire has caused immeasurable suffering. That ends now. You'll create a power vacuum, Thelvar said desperately. Other empires will move in. You'll destabilize the entire region. Good, Minha said coldly. Let the old order burn. We'll build something better from the ashes. She left him alone. Thelvar buried his face in his hands and wept for his empire. In space, 50,000 human warships traveled through hyperspace toward their target. The largest military operation in human history was underway. The Velcran Empire, 3,000 years old and seemingly invincible, was about to learn what happened when apex predators came knocking on your door. The journey would take 2 weeks. 2 weeks for the Velcrans to panic. 2 weeks for the slave populations to prepare for liberation. 2 weeks for humanity to finalize their battle plans. And then the real war would begin. The Velcran homeworld of Thelvara was beautiful from orbit. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling in atmospheric patterns. It looked peaceful. It looked innocent. It was the center of a 3,000-year-old empire built on slavery and conquest. Captain Dae-ho Kim watched it from the bridge of the Determination as 50,000 human warships dropped out of hyperspace simultaneously. The sudden appearance of such a massive fleet caused chaos in Velcron space. "Sir, detecting multiple Velcron defense platforms," his tactical officer reported. "Orbital stations, satellite weapons, shield generators. They've fortified this system heavily. Only 100 Brenzes, only Divity, only weapon. Resues, only 100 Brenzes, only weapon." "They had 2 weeks to prepare," Deho said calmly. "They knew we were coming. Doesn't matter. Sunmi, are your mirror platforms deployed?" Engineer Sunmi Bay responded from her command ship. "Affirmative, Captain. We've positioned 3,000 orbital mirrors around the star, ready to fire on your command." "Hyuk, status on the stealth fleet?" Commander Hyuknam's voice came through crystal clear. "My ships are already inside their defensive perimeter. The Velcrans still can't detect us. We're ready to strike." G1. Drone swarms? Lieutenant G1 Kang's neural link pulsed with readiness. 500,000 drones deployed and awaiting orders. "Sir, the Velcrans have no idea we're here." Deho smiled. The Velcrans had spent 2 weeks fortifying their homeworld. They had recalled their scattered fleet, gathering nearly 300,000 warships for the defense. It was the largest military force they had assembled in centuries. It wouldn't be enough. "All ships, begin the operation," Deho ordered. "Target military installations only. Avoid civilian casualties where possible." The battle for Thelvara began. Sunmi's orbital mirrors fired first. Concentrated solar energy lanced down from space, striking Velcran military bases on the planet's surface. Planetary shields absorbed the first impacts, but human weapons had been designed to overwhelm defensive systems. The mirrors fired again and again, burning through shield generators until the defenses collapsed. Commander Hyuknam's stealth ships materialized inside the Velcron defensive perimeter. They weren't attacking the planet. They were targeting the command ships. Without coordination, the massive Velcran fleet would fall apart. "All units, weapons free," Hyuk transmitted to his squadron. 300 stealth destroyers opened fire simultaneously. The Velcran fleet tried to respond. 300,000 ships was an enormous force, but they were spread across the entire star system. Human forces had jumped directly to key positions, bypassing the outer defenses entirely. The Velcrans found themselves fighting enemies that appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before return fire could be effective. Lieutenant G1 Kang released her drone swarms. 500,000 AI-controlled fighters flooded into the battle space. Her neural link spread across all of them, coordinating their movements with impossible precision. The drones moved like birds in a murmuration, flowing around Velcran point defense, overwhelming targeting computers, striking weak points with deadly accuracy. A Velcran admiral watched his fleet fall apart and couldn't understand how this was happening. His species had been the galaxy's dominant military power for 3,000 years. They had conquered hundreds of worlds. They had never lost. "How are they doing this?" he shouted at his sensor officer. "Sir, their coordination is beyond anything we've encountered. They're fighting as a single organism. Every ship, every weapon, every drone is perfectly synchronized. Impossible. No species can coordinate forces at this scale, but humans could. 30 years of preparation. 30 years of building AI systems, neural links, quantum communication networks. Humanity had designed their entire military around perfect coordination because they knew they would be outnumbered. They had to fight smarter, faster, and more efficiently than any empire in the galaxy, and they were winning. Captain Borasong commanded a task force of capital ships targeting Velcran orbital installations. Her ship, the Indomitable, lived up to its name once again. Velcran weapons fire splashed harmlessly against quantum shields. Return fire from plasma cannons melted through Velcran hulls like they were made of paper. "Captain, the Velcrans are trying to evacuate their leadership," her sensor officer reported. "Not happening," Bora said. "Helm, intercept course. Weapons, Disable their engines but keep the ship intact. The Indomitable pursued. Precision fire crippled the evacuation ship's engines. Boarding teams were already preparing to secure the vessel. On the planet's surface, Sergeant Taijun O led ground forces into the capital city. His mission was to secure government buildings and prevent the Velcrans from destroying critical data. His team moved through the city in powered armor, looking like gods of war to the terrified Velcran civilians who watched from windows. Remember, civilians are not targets, Taejun reminded his squad. We're here for the military and government leadership. They reached the Imperial Palace. Velcran guards tried to defend it with plasma rifles. The shots bounced off human armor. Taejun's return fire was precise and non-lethal when possible. He stunned guards, rather than killing them when circumstances allowed. The palace fell in 20 minutes. Inside, Velcran officials cowered as human soldiers secured the building. Taejun found the central computer core and uploaded a virus that Dr. Minha Park had designed. It would copy all government records and beam them to human ships in orbit. Ground team to command, Taejun reported. Palace secured. Data extraction in progress. Above the planet, the space battle was entering its final phase. The Velcran fleet had been reduced by half. The survivors were scattered, disorganized, desperate. Some tried to surrender. Others fought to the death. A few attempted to flee the system. Admiral Junho Lee watched from the command ship that had just arrived via a second wave. He studied the tactical display with satisfaction. Human casualties were minimal. Reseted, Arso. A few damaged ships, some injured personnel, but no deaths yet. The Velcrans had lost 150,000 ships and counting. Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from the slave worlds, Intelligence Officer Mireille reported. The enslaved populations are rebelling. They heard we're attacking the Velcran homeworld, and they're rising up across the Empire. Casualties? Heavy on both sides, sir. The Velcrans are responding with extreme force. Junho's expression hardened. Mireille, I want a list of every slave world experiencing a rebellion. We're going to help them. Junho's expression. Sir, we can't possibly reach all of them in time. We don't need to reach all of them. We just need to reach enough to show the galaxy that we keep our promises. Prepare task forces for immediate deployment. Diplomat Seojun Kwon stood beside the Admiral, watching the battle with conflicted emotions. We're winning, he said quietly. We are, Junho agreed. So many dead. So many enslaved people about to be freed, Junho countered. War is terrible, Seojun. But sometimes it's necessary. The Velcrans had 3,000 years to choose a different path. They chose conquest and slavery. Now they pay the price. On the planet's surface, Dr. Minha Park was coordinating with liberated slave populations. Human forces had secured several labor camps and freed thousands of enslaved aliens. The freed slaves stared at their liberators with disbelief and hope. One of them, a small alien with blue skin and large eyes, approached Minha carefully. She said through a translator device. The ones who destroyed the Velcran fleet at Earth. We are, Minha confirmed. Why? Why do you care about us? Why risk your lives to free us? Minha knelt down to the alien's eye level. Because slavery is wrong. Because every sentient being deserves freedom. Because we can help. So we must help. The alien began to cry. Others joined her, thousands of freed slaves weeping with relief and joy. Human soldiers watched, many of them blinking back tears of their own. This was why they fought. Not for conquest. Not for glory. For this moment. For freedom. The space battle ended 72 hours after it began. The Velcran fleet was destroyed. The planetary defenses were offline. The government had surrendered. Captain Daeho Kim stood on the bridge of the Determination and allowed himself a moment of exhaustion. Final casualty report, he requested. Human losses. 15 ships destroyed. 43 damaged. 207 personnel killed. 618 wounded. Velcran losses. 294,000 ships destroyed. Estimated casualties in the millions. Deho closed his eyes. 207 dead. Each one a person, with a family, with dreams, with a life that had ended in service to humanity's first interstellar war. They would be remembered. They would be honored. But the war wasn't over. "Sir, Admiral Junho is requesting your presence planet-side," his communications officer reported. Deho took a shuttle down to the surface. He found Junho in the Imperial Palace, standing in the throne room, where Velcran emperors had ruled for 3,000 years. Sergeant Taejun-O had brought Emperor Thelvar from Earth. The former ruler of a galactic empire stood in chains in his own throne room, facing the man who had destroyed his civilization. "Emperor Thelvar," Junho said formally, "your empire is defeated. Your fleet is destroyed. Your government has surrendered. What do you have to say?" Thelvar looked around at the human soldiers, at the freed slaves watching from the doorways, at the ruins of his power. "You've won," he said simply. "What will you do with us? Enslave us, as we enslaved others? Wipe us out?" Junho shook his head. "No, we're not conquerors. We're liberators. The Velcran military will be disbanded. Your weapons will be destroyed. Your leadership will stand trial for crimes against sentient species. But your people will not be enslaved or exterminated. You'll live under human oversight until we're satisfied you're no longer a threat. Then you'll be given self-governance again." "Why?" Thelvar asked, genuinely confused. "Why show us mercy?" "Because we're better than you," Junho said simply. "We could enslave you. We could wipe you out. But that would make us no different than what you were. Humanity fights to protect the weak, not to exploit them." Diplomat Seojun Kwan stepped forward. "Emperor Thelvar, you and your government will face trial. The enslaved species deserve justice. But justice is not genocide. You will be judged fairly." Thelvar bowed his head. "We were arrogant. We thought our strength made us superior. We never imagined a young species could defeat us." "That was your first mistake, Doctor," Mina Park said. "Assuming age equals superiority. Humanity is young, but we're innovative. We adapt. We improve. You stopped doing that thousands of years ago." Engineer Sun Mi Bei was already implementing the next phase of the plan. Human technology was being distributed to the freed slave species. Power generators, medical equipment, communication systems, the tools they needed to rebuild their civilizations. "We're not just freeing them," she explained to her team. "We're giving them the means to stay free. The galaxy is changing. Old empires like the Velcrans are finished. The future belongs to those who can adapt. Old and everyone. We're giving them the means." Pilot Heijin Lim's scouts had discovered something troubling during the campaign. "Admiral, we've detected signals from other empires. There are at least 3 other major powers in this region of space. They're watching what we did to the Velcrans. Are they threats?" Junho asked. "Unknown, sir. But they're paying attention. We've announced our presence to the galaxy. They know Earth exists now. They know we're powerful." Junho considered this. "Good. Let them watch. Let them see what happens to empires that enslave others. Let them see that humanity protects the weak. Maybe we'll have fewer problems in the future." 3 months after the battle, the trials began. Velcran leaders faced judges from dozens of species they had enslaved. The evidence of their crimes was overwhelming. Slavery, genocide, systematic destruction of cultures. Thousands of years of suffering. The verdicts were harsh but fair. The worst offenders were imprisoned for life. Others received sentences proportional to their crimes. Emperor Thelvar was sentenced to watch the rebuilding of everything his empire had destroyed. He would live long enough to see the freed species flourish without Velcran oppression. Admiral Junho Lee stood before the freed populations and made a promise. Humanity will not abandon you. We will help you rebuild. We will protect you from other threats. And when you're ready, you'll govern yourselves as free and independent civilizations. The response was overwhelming. 47 species, billions of individuals, celebrating their freedom. Human soldiers watched with pride and humility. They had done something extraordinary. They had changed the galaxy. On Earth, the news was received with mixed emotions. Pride in their military success, sorrow for the lives lost, concern about what came next. Humanity was now a major power in the galaxy. That brought responsibilities. Dr. Minha Park recorded her final log entry from the mission. Humanity's first contact lasted 119 hours, from the Velcran ultimatum to the destruction of their fleet at Earth. Our first war lasted 3 months. We didn't start the war, but we finished it. The question now is, can we live up to the responsibility of being the strongest power in the region? Can we use our strength to protect, rather than to dominate? History will judge us by what we do next. 10 Savintal. Captain Daeho Kim returned to Earth a hero. He stood before news cameras and gave a simple statement. We fought because we had to. We won because we were prepared. We showed mercy because we chose to. That's what makes us human. We're not perfect. We're not infallible. But we try to do what's right, even when it's hard. Commander Hyuk Nam returned to his quiet life, knowing he had helped free billions from slavery. Lieutenant Jiwon Kang disconnected from her neural link and remembered what it felt like to be one person instead of 1,000. Engineer Sunmi Bae began designing the next generation of technology, already thinking about future threats. Sergeant Taejun Oh trained new soldiers, teaching them to fight smart and show mercy when possible. The galaxy had changed. The Velcran Empire was gone. Dozens of species were free, and humanity had announced itself as a force for liberation, not conquest. But pilot Heijin Lim's scouts continued to explore deep space. They found new civilizations, some peaceful, some hostile. Admiral Junho Lee stood in the rebuilt command center on Earth and looked at the star maps. So many worlds, so many civilizations, so many potential threats and allies. We're not conquerors, he said quietly to himself, but we will never be victims. The galaxy thought Earth was prey. They were wrong. We're the apex predator. He opened a communication channel to all human forces across the solar system. This is Admiral Lee. The Velcran War is over. We won. But our mission continues. We will defend Earth. We will protect the weak. We will oppose tyranny wherever we find it. That's our responsibility now. That's our burden. And that's our honor. Across Earth and throughout human space, people heard the message and understood. Humanity had changed forever. They were no longer alone in the universe. They were no longer weak. They were a power to be reckoned with, and they would use that power wisely. Or at least, they would try, because that's what made them human.